Have you ever wanted to read a science fiction book set thousands of years in the future that follows a species of human like creatures as they are horribly experimented on, and their masters are a species of advanced frog people, and you basically have hundreds of pages of legal conduct, horrible Unit 731 style experiments, and just societal engineering? Well, if that does sound like something you would read because you're a lunatic like myself, then may I suggest the Dosadi Experiment by Frank Herbert. Um, Frank Herbert is best known for his Dune series, which, as you guys probably know by now, I'm a huge fan of. I love Dune. The Dune saga is one of my favorites I've ever read. Dune is one of my favorite books I've ever read. In fact, it's number 2. And I love Frank Herbert as an author. So going into the Dosadi Experiment, I had high hopes. I knew that it was going to be trippy. I knew it was going to be weird because the premise sounded interesting. The idea that there's this planet-wide experiment going on this toxic planet conducted by frog people on a human-like species, and this human-like species eventually breaks out, and you kind of just have to see what happens. Well, call me intrigued, all right? I like science fiction that gets weird. I like, my normal space opera science fiction. I like my Dune, I like my, Sun Eater, I like my Red Rising, but sometimes I really want to read just a weird, wacky book, and the Dosadi Experiment was exactly that. So, what makes it a good book? Because I enjoyed it for the most part. Well, this is going to be for a very specific niche of people. It has to come down to 2 categories. You have to either really like weird, whacked out science fiction, like myself, or be a huge Frank Herbert fan, which is essentially the same thing. If you're someone who likes really intense, galaxy-spanning space operas, this isn't going to be for you. If you like action-packed thrillers, this is not going to be for you. If you like character-driven stories that really fleshes out these people that you're following, and you like characters with very clear, concise motivations, this is not going to be for you. But if you like getting into the head of a lunatic as he writes a crazy thought experiment thousands of years in the future, if you like, discussing the philosophy of societal engineering, of horrible human experiments, of advanced inter-species relationships, if you like the idea of following a borderline legal drama as you see certain characters try and deal with the legality of such a horrible experiment, if you like people debating the ethics of a society-wide just experiment, one that is really horrible to read, if you like dark science fiction that is more focused on its ideas and its philosophy and its politics and following the legal code and how all of these things work, then this may be for you. This is not necessarily what I would call a hard science fiction book, because at least in my own definition, hard sci-fi is following a book that, it could happen in our own reality. There's some real science or kind of real science to back up what's going on in the story. But this is like hard science fiction's cousin, because none of this can really happen in our modern society, at least not to the level that this is going on. Obviously there's stuff like the Tuskegee experiments, Unit 731, the stuff that happened, during the Holocaust, all those sorts of horrible experiments. But this is like the step beyond that, and it really explores how those kinds of experiments are really horrible, and it kind of goes through what would it be like to experience an experiment like that for, what seems like thousands of years. Like, what does that do to a person's psychology or to a species' psychology? Like, what will occur after that? And, if that's something you're really into, if you like following really weird science fiction ideas, if you're a fan of if you're a fan of like world building and thought experiments, this book may be for you. But if you're someone who prefers like characters or I don't know, just like not being driven insane by a book, don't read this. This book broke my brain, as you guys can tell. I liked it, but I also didn't. It was dark. It was depressing. It took me like 100 pages to figure out what was going on. But once I figured it out and I figured out what Frank Herbert was doing, I thought it was genius. It's just a really solid book. I'm gonna give it like a 7 out of 10. But this is again for a very like niche audience. This is not going to be like your Sun Eater or your Red Rising or your Expanse, where it appeals to lots of people because it's got that really cool space opera feel, where you're following like a really cool protagonist. This is for the people who want weird philosophical science fiction. This is for people who think it would be interesting to read the legal code of an advanced frog species. This is for people who would think it's really interesting to follow the most horrible thought experiment that has ever been conceived. And if that's you, then I recommend this. If it's not, it's okay. You can skip this one. 7 out of 10.